Welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about TV, movies, comics, and all things geek. Today, we're looking back at Saturday morning cartoons. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
This is Tommy Smithereens.
And I'm Clifton.
All right, so stick around until the end because each of us will name a show to be inducted into a thing we just made up called the Saturday Morning Hall of Fame. So we're all big animation fans here at Let Me Know How It Is, and we all have some fond memories of Saturday mornings, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It was a sacred fixture of childhood, the brightest spot of your week. So let's look back at the steps to get you there. Let me take you back to Friday. There was a magical thing in the lunchroom at school called Pizza Day. Your backpack was a little lighter when you packed up at the end of the day because it's Friday, and that meant no homework. And you know what you could do because of no homework? You guys remember? You could play outside as soon as you got home from school, right off the school bus, 3 p.m. all the way to dinner, uninterrupted, except maybe for an afternoon snack or the occasional bathroom break. Oh, wait, but it didn't stop there, because after dinner, supper, as exactly one kid I knew called it, there was yet another embarrassment of riches. TGIF was on. Ah, the showcase of the immortals. Did I do that? Have mercy. Fina! TGIF allowed you to stay up past your bedtime. And the next morning, something special was waiting for you. The thing you look forward to the most. No, it wasn't Santa. The next morning, there was an entire block of cartoons waiting to greet you with the morning sun. 4 blissful hours separated into 22-minute slices of joy. Hilarious talking animals, fun adventures, catchy theme songs, and the eternal battle of good versus evil. Saturday mornings had it all. You guys remember in X-Men 1 when Senator Kelly turns into that water monster and he just turns into that blob and just falls off the table?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
That's what my muscles feel like right now. I'm so relaxed thinking about it. So Saturday mornings, let's do it.
Saturday morning was awesome.
Yes.
Well, the thing about it was there wasn't just one block of cartoons.
Right.
There were 3.
Yeah, but it was on all 3 networks.
There were 3. There was 3. You had to, in those days there was no DVRing. There might have been VCRing.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to watch something that was on at the same time opposite one of your favorite shows. And eventually there was 4 when Fox got into the mix, but Saturday morning cartoons were awesome.
Sure.
Just the idea of the idea of, especially when you got the slate. Like I remember in the comics, like for a while there would be, or in the TV guide or your local TV guide, you would get
right.
the rundown, the grid of what the shows were going to be.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you never had any idea for sure what. I mean, some of them you're like, oh, okay, though it's some kind of Harlem Globetrotter show, I get that, or some kind of Gilligan's Island in space, or you Bugs Bunny, and you knew for sure. You Scooby Doo's, you knew that one, but every now and then they would throw you a curveball, and you really wouldn't know what it was, and you'd have to be like, you might get a synopsis, but
Right.
even then, unless you saw an ad, you really wouldn't know what it was. I remember I always loved I was gonna say in the late 80s, mid 80s, you started getting
Mm-hmm.
the Saturday before. You would get the Saturday show. Like they devote like an hour to give you clips or behind the scenes stuff, and every now and then you get like voice actors working together.
Right.
And again, they would introduce what's coming up for the next, like for the whole season, quote unquote, for Saturday morning.
Those would often run on primetime Friday nights.
Yeah, that's
before
true.
Before the premiere day for that season's Saturday morning cartoons, because I remember that was like every year it was an annual thing. Like they would have the Saturday morning preview show, and like I would wait for that. That was like Christmas Eve to Christmas Day, where it would be like Punky Brewster and the cast, like her friends, like introducing whatever NBC's cartoons were going to be that season.
True.
And like through skits and stuff. There's a whole I looked up some. You can find a lot of these on YouTube.
Okay.
A lot of those preview shows you're talking about, they were great in and of themselves.
I remember one for I think it was CBS, maybe CBS, or maybe it was ABC, but it was like Joyce DeWitt was one of the hosts.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I don't know why Janet from Three's Company was involved,
because she's a choice.
Yeah, I guess you either needed the money or they needed, had no, didn't have anybody else to do it, and they threw it to her. But yeah, it was her, and I can't remember who the guy host was. But again, it was her and doing like behind the scenes stuff with voice actors, like acting out a scene or in the booth or whatever, along with, quick cuts or, snippets of what the shows were about. So,
right. Yeah. I love those things.
Interesting. Okay. And so you guys all have memories of this.
I do. Sure.
Okay.
Oh, I did find your Joyce DeWitt one, French.
Ah, there you go.
That was 1984.
Okay, there is.
Saturday's The Place, hosted by Joyce DeWitt, featuring Howie Mandel and Ted Knight.
Well, there you go.
1984
Wow.
CBS preview.
What more do you need?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this would run the night before.
That's how I remember them being like the Friday night before they would premiere the next morning. But it's possible they did show them multiple times.
Okay. So like what time would this come on? Because this is like completely new to me.
Oh, the preview shows?
What time would this come on? Yeah. What time would this come on Friday?
Like prime time, like 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
When the new fall season comes up, whatever lineup would be, it'd be hosted by, like what Frank was saying, a celebrity or whoever's popular during that lineup. And then they vote the whole like hour long to snippets of the new upcoming show. Sometimes it'll be a new season of Smurfs or, just whatever changes to an existing show that wasn't canceled and what you can look forward to as a result of the next big craze, like Back to the Future or something.
Yeah, like it'd be like the idea, it would introduce the idea of like, well, the Scooby Gang is getting things changed up this time because now they're involved with Vincent Van Gogh and the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
And there'll be a whole thing about it. Mm-hmm.
So they were almost like station upfronts just for the cartoon block.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So.
Wow.
The one I was thinking of was 1985's Back to Next Saturday, starring the Keisha Knight Pullman, Lisa Whelchel, and guest starring the cast of Punky Brewster and Kid Video. That's the one that stuck the most in my mind.
Oh, wow.
It was 1985's.
Yeah.
And why would it not?
That's awesome. But no, that's what's even weirder is like when the one that I remember with Joyce DeWitt, because I would have thought it was ABC, but the fact that she's doing CBS when she wasn't on a CBS show is even odder.
Yeah, in 84, when I think it had wrapped the show she was on.
Yeah, maybe she just needed the work.
Yeah. With like a young, I'm sure, upstart at the time, Howie Mandel in 1984. Like he couldn't have been that established yet.
No, Howie Mandel at that point was still putting rubber gloves on his head. That goes back to if you've ever seen Howie Mandel do stand-up.
Right.
So,
right. He would become a big part of my Saturday morning later on with Bobby's World, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, I loved Bobby's World.
Yeah, which is probably about 10 years after this.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say with the animated Deal or No Deal.
Yeah. Coming soon to Peacock.
Right.
Deal or No Deal, the animated series. Yeah.
Right.
So, Tommy, how about you? What were some of your memories of Saturday morning?
No. I was currently thinking about what Frank brought up. I completely forgot about the intros to that. But specifically, I was thinking, I don't know. It's just, to me, it was a blur because depending on where you caught me, it was with that big bowl of cereal. Yeah, one that would sustain you like for almost the course of an entire show. That's how big the cereal would be. And God, I'm trying to think what was the fondest.
So you were a breakfast eater during Saturday morning. Okay.
I got up early. I mean, when you have a big big family, you got to beat them to that cereal box before everything's gone.
Okay. Let me stop you really quick then, because you're kind of getting into something I wanted to play around with a little bit. So I'll ask you guys these questions first, just to kind of set the stage. So just everybody go around and we'll do this first. So okay. So for Saturday morning, couch, bed, or floor?
Couch.
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 Clifton.
I was usually floor just because of our setup. Like I wanted to be like closer and didn't have a remote control. So I needed to be able to change the channel through the 3 different channels to see like what was on and what was happening. And if it was a new episode or I had seen it, I didn't have a remote control like really early on. So I would get stuff like I would bring down like my comforter and stuff and like make a nest on the floor. Like so I could get up and easily change the TV and then just get back to laying down. That's what I would do.
Okay. Perfect. That's my next question too. I was a floor guy too also. So, okay. Blanket or no blanket?
Oh,
What was your setup?
I always had blankets. I would steal like my comforter or something and just drag it all the way downstairs and down the hall and to the living room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would make like a little picnic setup like in the living room.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you guys?
No blanket for me.
I would just be on the couch for 4 hours, basically.
Yeah, no
Okay.
blanket for me.
Up until they would run the after school special. That was the one that like no, there was not. It was something like that.
Yeah, you would get to like something serious when noon hit.
Or like ABC always had the Pro Bowlers Association. Like as soon as I saw the ad for that, like they started the guys, chunky white guys with mustaches rolling a ball down a lane.
Right,
And I go, day's over. All right, well, find something else to do. So that's how it was for me. I just
precursors
knew,
to the Big Lebowski. Like when you see them on TV, that's when you know it's time to go out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
This is so funny because my noon was wrestling.
Okay.
So you would stay in.
I knew people that weren't wrestling guys, and then so they were like, "Oh no!" Like as soon as noon hit, I was outside. It was like cartoons, and then noon, go outside. And I was like, no, for me, it was always one because I would it was Saved by the Bell at 11, right, and that stuff, and then it was wrestling at noon,
right, like California Dreams at 11:30 or something.
Yep. Yeah. That might have been when I was showering, was 11:30 because I was never a California Dreams guy.
Okay.
But okay, so Tommy, you brought up the breakfast situation, which is always like I'm always curious about it because it's a long block. You got to eat at some point. So did you guys have a plan? Did you always do it like at a certain time? And what were you guys eating?
For me, it depends on if my mother worked that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a space of resolve, instead of like prepare yourself, eating a big bowl of cereal without knowing until you need to clean up, because that was our cleanup days as well. So she didn't work that Saturday, she worked us. And maybe we were lucky to watch wrestling and kung fu movies and miss the whole animation block due to what we had to do. That's why it was so genuine and nice. But no, I remember the wrestling block. Then we devolved into if it was Sundays, it was Blondie. If it was Saturday, it was Kung Fu Theater.
Nice.
That was your post show, your post Saturday morning cartoon show.
Yeah, because who's gonna leave TV? I mean, you guys went out, but depends.
Yeah, I didn't go out. I just felt like I kept flipping until I found something else to watch.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it was because again, it was something where it was either something educational would come on, and I'd be like, nope, Saturday.
It's my day off.
It's my day off. Right?
I've learned enough this week.
Yeah, I've worked 5 days of learning. I'm not going to learn anything
You're not
else.
going to teach me compound fractions today.
No, not at all. So it was definitely the whole thing of like they said like that, or the guys bowling, or like I said, some stations would go to some kind of version of like kids news or something like that. Nah, I'm good. So yeah, that was me. I was kept looking. I just keep turning the dial, trying to find something else to watch.
Right. Okay. So, but Tommy was a cereal eater. What were you guys?
I mean, sometimes cereal. If my mom made breakfast, then I try to eat in between commercials. Or in between like commercials were on and going to eat. But then again, you had to be careful with that because you might miss something for a toy. There might be a Star Wars or a Superpowers or whatever. G.I. Joe commercial.
So there's some of those cool G.I. Joe toy commercials from before the show existed.
Yes.
Where that was the only G.I. Joe animation you'd get.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever it was, they were probably selling me something I wanted to go get, so I couldn't miss those. So there was a lot of like running to the table, eating some scrambled eggs and toast, and then running back to, because that's the other thing was like, if you have a sibling, your sibling would be like, it's on. Come back.
Right.
It's back on. So you got to run from the table, or if you were that you were the older sibling, while your younger siblings at the table, it'd be like. So there was a lot of shuffling back and forth.
I remember that. Yeah, for sure. Clifton, what about you? This is just a big part of it for me. Like, because a big part of Saturday morning was like the ambiance too. It was like what was your? So what did you eat?
It was definitely cereal. It was usually like some form of Captain Crunch. Like I would rotate through the different flavors, like the regular, the crunch berries and the peanut butter, depending on what I wanted to scar the roof of my mouth with that day.
Right.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's like what Tommy was talking about. Like I'd get the big bowl, but then I'd also kind of have like the box nearby so I could top myself off sometimes if I wanted like fresher ones and not all soggy ones.
Mm-hmm.
That was all part of my ritual.
Yep. Okay. That was mine too. So it was a cereal, and unless my mom or dad, were making something else. But like thinking back to this, it made me realize like how laxed my parents were on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was also like, because I was like, I was getting stuck on like when did I eat Saturday mornings? Like, my God, like I was just watching TV for hours. And as a parent, this is like, this sounds different, like being on the other side of it. But it hit me that like at my folks' house, you could see the TV from like the doorway of the family room in the kitchen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I remember I would just eat cereal standing up.
Yeah.
like technically in the kitchen, but looking in the other room so I could see the TV.
So you're like a divorced dad at like 9?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like in my Ninja Turtle pajamas or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and just doing it. I'm like, wow, no, the idea that like that they were cool with that and wasn't like sit down,
Yep.
Yeah. I remember I was always like, I also like, I didn't like, it's still a little bit like this to this day. Like when I wake up, I don't like, sunlight to hit me like so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like I always still like to have like the blinds and the curtains kind of drawn a little bit, especially for the early ones. Like I liked getting up and it was still, not dark out, but it was like, the house was still a little dark, and it was just, and oftentimes I was like the first one up, and it was just something kind of cool about like, being up in a cavernous like family room and the TV's on and it's the only light in the room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was fun.
I mean, it was funny because like I would never wake up early. Like I would never want to wake up early when I was a kid, not for school, of course.
No.
But Saturdays, I'd be up at the crack of dawn and like ready to go, like every Saturday morning.
Yep. Yeah, me too. I mean, yeah, Clifton, we're so similar in this way for that sort of thing.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, I was always the 5 more minutes, mom.
Yeah.
Like, like I don't like, hate getting up early. And then, but yeah, that like never needed an alarm clock, never needed, like, I was just up. My body just knew, like, nah.
Right.
Snorks is on, got to get up.
Of course.
So Frank, you brought up an interesting thing that honestly I had kind of forgotten about, because it was like you were saying, it was 3 channels of Saturday morning blocks.
Yeah.
And then 4 with Fox later. And I had forgotten about this completely because I tended to be kind of a one network kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of parked on Fox for and I just kind of stayed there until there was something I was like really devoted to.
Right.
Like I would like make the switch to like Ninja Turtles or something like that because it was on a different channel out here. But like, yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, so what were you guys doing? Were you guys playing just like, remote commando the whole time and just sort of like channel flipping back and forth, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, if I think back, I was probably primarily an ABC kid because they had like Super Friends or Galactic Guardians or, Superpowers.
And Thundar in 81.
And Thundar, yeah, that's true. But like, again, I remember distinctly CBS had Dungeons and Dragons. I remember checking out, NBC had the Flintstones, like the Flintstones Meet the Shmoo, or like
right, with Captain Caveman.
And Captain Caveman was part of that.
Pebbles.
Yep. And they also had
Smurfs.
That's where you first had like the Flintstones and the Thing.
Okay.
Where we have Teenage Benji with the ring.
Right.
I remember this on Cartoon Network later. Yeah.
And Ring Thing, do your thing, and he would, he would basically, rocks would come out of nowhere, and suddenly he was the Thing for whatever reason.
Yeah. He was bombarded with rocks.
Yeah, I mean, I it's like now I would look for stuff with super folk, in it, because they also had because again NBC also had like, what was the show with the Shazam show? They did the Filmation Shazam, the Kids Superpower. It was Kids Superpower
Hour. Yep,
with Shazam, where it was like they had like a teenage superhero high school kids. And then they would do musical. They had musical numbers, and then on top of that, they would run this Filmation, like Shazam. So, but I still, you'd get if there was a rerun on, you check. That's how I was. You check other stuff, like you'd watch something like, I don't know, like Godzilla,
right,
okay,
on one of the channels, or I haven't watched Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck in a while. But then again, a lot of stuff that was syndicated, I felt like I could get during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like something like, Bugs and Daffy was on. Like at that point, you had like you're having your emergence of your super stations, like TBS, was a super station out of Atlanta, and then you had WGN out of Chicago, and they ran stuff like in the afternoon. There was those blocks of like a million different cartoons, so I could get that during the week as well. But it wasn't the same as Saturday morning, where you had across the spectrum of ABC, NBC, and CBS, you had all of these slates of different shows. So if it was something like I knew I could get during the week, I probably didn't watch it on Saturday. So I wouldn't watch like Bugs Bunny or Roadrunner.
Right.
I'm trying to think what's the other one. Like Alvin and the Chipmunks, I think was an early syndicated show as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And sometimes they would do like, you would get something, again, years ago. So you get like Popeye, or you would get like Woody Woodpecker, all the Walter Lantz stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like for me, because it's. I mean, and thinking about it, I mean, you were watching cartoons really at like every point of your life at that point, right? Because I am thinking about it, because I did like Alvin and the Chipmunks was a before school show to me, right? I watched that while I was eating breakfast before I ran off to the bus.
Okay, right.
Right. And then when I got home from school, there was, cartoons on at like 3 p.m. and stuff like that. And so as much cartoons as I was watching during the week, there was still something like really special about Saturday mornings. And I think it was just that like there was still like the active like new stuff, like producing new episodes, which I thought, and I guess thinking back to it, like it seems to me that the before school and after school stuff tended to be kind of like rerun stuff, or like that stuff had been on for a little while. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Saturday mornings were definitely like the prime time for cartoons. Like they were like all 3 networks. I mean, it was such a big deal that all 3 networks, the 3 major networks at the time, which we're in such a different world now. It's hard to think of like, three networks are all we had, and that was all that was important for a time. But it was. And even like talking like Zach, you're talking about, Fox Saturday mornings, and it's just because you're a touch younger than the others of us that came in at the end of ours. Like most of our memories are prior to Fox having a Saturday morning, with a little overlap at the end, but it was like it was a mainstay throughout your whole period of this. Yeah. So I mean, that's just even a difference, even just a little difference between us there. And so it's like, it does just seem like such a crazy world back then that you only had 3 major networks. Right. And they all devoted so much time to this. But yeah, like the Saturday morning was their prime time. The weekdays that we'd get on usually the UHF channels, talking broadcast TV. People like don't even know the difference between VHF and UHF now. But the UHF being like the more obscure channels, like, I mean, we grew up around DC, so our channels were channel 20 and channel 50. Yeah. And then, you'd get, if you had a TV with a good antenna, you could get the Baltimore channels, 45 and 54, and get some extra choices to your afternoon. And if the weather was clear. Right. If it wasn't raining, or if it was the right time of day, you could get those cartoons and have a little more choice in your afternoons. But yeah, like it was definitely the Saturday morning was the prime time for it. Yeah. There was a kind of an ebb and flow to it, I think, over the course of the years that I did it, because I mean, yeah, like Fox was kind of a mainstay, and that was sort of like so the big anchor for me was Ninja Turtles, and I remember that was like on CBS, and prior to that, like I was so young that I just sort of just watched CBS the whole time, right? Because it's like I wasn't old enough to know, like all I knew was that Ninja Turtles came on at like 9:00. Okay, right, but like I didn't know like what else was on other channels at that time and stuff like that. And I was afraid of missing it. So I just stayed on CBS the whole time. Okay.
No, I can see that. That makes sense.
Yeah. And watch like Garfield and Friends and stuff like that, which was like, the longest half hour on television because it was a show right before Ninja Turtles for me. And it was like, and I just didn't know how they crammed. It felt like a million shorts into those 30 minutes, into that 30 minutes. Like, and then, but Fox was sort of like the next, like I just kind of like gravitated towards it because it had like like Bobby's World and Eek the Cat later on and stuff like that. And then there was even, when I was starting to get older, but I mean, like Kids WB was a thing,
Right.
Yeah.
also, and they were sort of like one of the last vestiges of Saturday morning. I think was like Kids WB, and so yeah, I mean, so depending on my age and stuff like that, I kind of like I had like sort of a different lineup I followed. Which I guess isn't crazy because I mean, like, yeah, I mean, there was no show on for the entire duration of my childhood. Like stuff got canceled and, made their, whatever, 65 episodes and then that was it. And, and then something else came along.
Right. Yeah. I just think that you got to like the Saturday morning for the longest time because it was I think it was just a place for them to put more advertising to kids that you got more of a, more so than the afternoons for a while. And then eventually I think it flips, but you get more of a lot more new material / experimental stuff than you would in the afternoons. Cause I feel like the afternoons was just an excuse to like put on the syndicated stuff was always stuff that had ran before. Like it was or it might've been Saturday morning cartoons that had already been out.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be put on in the afternoon.
I feel like they were at least like good performing ones. I feel like that at least they dusted off like popular stuff and stuff that was at least like going to be like, a good like ratings.
Well, I mean, it was the stuff that had enough episodes. So it did have an audience that it got enough episodes to be syndicated.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely more well-known stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely felt like you said, it was an instance where with Saturday mornings, I was going to see generally stuff that I'd not seen before. For the most part, it was always going to be, fairly new stuff. And again, there was going to be, like you said before, when you made in the open about, you get off the school bus. Well, on Saturdays, it's like, well, I don't have to go to school. There's nothing really impeding me generally from having to move for, a good 3 hours to 4 hours, which I don't know. I couldn't always say that in the afternoons during the week. I may have homework or I may have something that I have to do that would not let me do that. So,
yeah. And we'll touch upon that too, because I think it's kind of interesting how Saturday mornings have changed.
Yeah.
And how unfortunately, like it's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Anymore. But we'll get a little bit more into that later on. So okay, so you guys had like this preview thing that would air on Fridays, and you would kind of give you a heads up of what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, each new season. Yep.
Okay, and so like every network had this for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and I found a list of them. Like they have their own Wikipedia entry.
Okay,
so they were a big deal, and yeah, like all the three major networks, and then Fox starting in 1991 did them as well.
Okay.
So it looks like that's when Fox came onto the scene, was in like 1990 to 1991. But yeah, ABC did them from 1969 until 1999. CBS did them off and on from 69 to 85.
Wow.
And NBC pretty consistently from 68 to 91. So the Saturday morning cartoon era seems to have started in the late 60s.
Okay.
68, 69, somewhere in there. So that's crazy. But yeah, like all the major networks were invested in this.
Yeah.
And all of them on all the channels had their celebrity guests, like we were saying, like Joyce DeWitt and Keisha Knight Pullman in the cast of Punky Brewster. But there's others like Ricky Schroeder, like in his
Silver Spoon
days before he's gone off the deep end. But Alf hosted one probably around the time he had a cartoon himself on Saturday mornings.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
The NBC in '89 did a Who Shrunk Saturday Morning parody of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with the Saved by the Bell cast.
Oh, wow.
Which I hope that's on YouTube because I don't have any memory of this one, but I do want to see it.
No, I don't have any memory of that either.
Yeah. I do want to see this one now.
Are you going to go watch it right after, Clifton?
Probably. I'm looking for it on YouTube now. That's the post show.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, they were a big deal. Oh, 85 was the All-Star Rockin' Wrestling Saturday Spectacular hosted by Rowdy Piper on CBS. Nice. Yeah, the late Roddy Piper.
Yes.
One of the greats.
Mm-hmm.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was also on that one.
Right.
Oh, wow.
With Captain Lou Albano and Pee Wee Herman and Patti LaBelle.
Jeez.
This cast doesn't stop.
No.
Right.
Jeez.
No, but you brought up, but no, that was another thing. I mean, like, yeah, Pee Wee Herman was a big Saturday morning thing too. That's right.
Pee Wee's Playhouse.
I'd forgotten all about that.
Which was a really surreal Saturday morning show.
Yeah.
Like, if I think back to it.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen it in years, but I remember like loving it, like being super, super excited about it. And
Right.
just like, it's just one of those things that now it's like, you know, it's like visuals. I remember, like, I remember the chair and I remember Conky, the robot thing. Cause he was my favorite looking of all of them, you
and
know.
Lawrence Fishburne. You remember Lawrence Fishburne?
Of course. Yeah.
Before Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So was there any show, because I'm curious about, because it spans so many years of your upbringing, was there any show that you weren't a fan of then, that looking back on it, or you saw later on that you were like, oh, okay, no, I get it now. Like, I get what that show was, or just like, I look at it with different eyes now.
Hmm.
I'll have to think about that one.
That's a good question. I found a grid for basically from 1979 on. So I'm looking through to see if there was stuff that
I think I'm looking at the same page. So we will put this in notes.
Okay.
Is it the intheeighties.com/Saturdays?
That's where I'm looking as well. Good job.
Okay.
We'll put that
Good
in our
job.
notes.
Yeah.
I do see a lot of candlepin bowling on this schedule, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that too. I'm like, oh, there it is.
ABC was eager to jump that gun. It looks like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or something on this schedule.
I'm thinking, to be honest with you, Zach, there's just stuff that I'm surprised. I'm like, I remember watching this and just like either the theme stands out in my brain, but it's not like I couldn't name a plot for a lot of this stuff. And a lot of this stuff, I'm just like, why did why did I watch this?
Right.
You know, there's a lot of that.
I'm certain our parents thought that many a time when they were just like in the room overhearing whatever was on, like, what is my kid into? Like,
right.
You know, mine was Dog City.
Dog City.
So that was a show. That was a show, I believe, on Fox. I want to say I was still pretty young.
That sounds right to me.
And it was Jim Henson's Dog City is what it was branded at, and it had sort of this. It had kind of a framing sequence that was a dog and his nephew, and they were puppets.
Oh,
and the dog was like a pulp writer, and his nephew would like come and hang out with him, and I remember so that was like kind of a frame narrative, but then the rest of the show was animated. Like the story that he was writing was the cartoon portion of the show.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so that was the first no go for me, because I was like, why isn't the whole thing puppets? Like, I'm like, this is awesome.
Right.
I wish the whole thing was puppets. I don't want to watch the cartoon of this.
Right.
Right. And then but like now thinking back to it, it's one of those like it's not available anywhere, and it's like it was never on DVD. But now it's like being into noir and getting that stuff now. Like I would kill for this today.
Right.
See, I was going to say, I think we just unlocked the mystery of Zach's origin story of how he got into noir.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that was it. It imprinted on you, and it's been locked in ever since. We just got we solved the mystery.
Yep.
With dog puppets.
Yep. That was it.
Mystery solved.
And they never had guns. That like I remember they couldn't have guns. So what they had was they used rolled up newspapers, and like those were the guns like in the cartoon. They would pull it out of their coat, and that would be like what like threatened everybody. I swear.
No.
Like it sounds awesome though, right? Right? It's hilarious. Like but that was the one that I'm just like for some reason I never gravitated towards it. Like I couldn't stand it watching it as a kid. But now I'm like looking for it. Like you know.
It ran September 92 to November 94. So it was in the early Fox Saturday morning days, Fox Kids.
Right.
Yeah, looking over this stuff, there's most of the stuff that I either watched, or I just didn't care. So it's not like I'm finding anything. I'm like, there's stuff that I'm like, I would like to go back and maybe check out. You know, see if I missed out on something, or whether or not it was, you know, better than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times I just turn my nose up stuff. I was like, nope, not going to check that out. Not bothering with that. Because again,
you're not going to watch the Wuzzles.
No, because it was on. Like I'm looking right now, the Wuzzles was on against what? Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes Comedy Hour, but I wouldn't have watched that.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I ate breakfast then. Maybe I actually stopped and ate breakfast.
Right.
that was your break.
Yeah. Because again, you had to wait all day for Galaxy High was on. I see that, and I would have watched that. Oh, Teen Wolf! I forgot Teen Wolf was it.
The Teen Wolf cartoon.
Yeah, definitely that would have been an hour that I devoted. But at the same time, opposite that, you have Superpowers. So I probably watched Superpowers, the Galactic Guardians. Maybe I recorded that and then watched Teen Wolf and Galaxy Guy because I remember watching Teen Wolf. And then you have the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo, which I love. I love the 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo.
Right.
Because it was
who doesn't? It's awesome.
I was gonna say but there's so much oh my god, Smurfs was on for an hour and a half. Who needs that much Smurfs in their life?
That was a dynasty. Smurfs was a Saturday morning dynasty.
Yeah, I know, but still, that's a lot. It's a lot of the Smurfs.
For me, the one that it wasn't a massive juggernaut, but the one that sort of took over a little bit was Terrible Thunder Lizards, which started as a segment in Eek the Cat.
Right.
So Eek the Cat was just its own show, and then they introduced these Terrible Thunder Lizards characters that was that became just sort of a reoccurring thing that came up more and more and more, and then they finally just got their own show.
Right.
And so it was Eek the Cat, and then it was their own 30-minute show that was sometimes made up of short. It was kind of like a Pinky in the Brain thing later on, where sometimes it was shorts from the Animaniacs that popped in, but then it was also new stuff too. But I remember, but that show was huge. I remember at school on Monday, we're all Terrible Thunder Lizards.
Okay. I'm going to make a moonlighting connection instead of Frank, just for Frank. Because I think...
whoa. Okay.
Oh, I can't remember the moonlighting character's name, but the guy that was in The Office.
Okay. Bert Viola?
Yeah, he was a voice on Terrible Thunder Lizards and Eek the Cat. He was one of the regular voices.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You recognize his voice. Revenge of the Nerds and all that. Mm-hmm. He was in all those.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, looking back at this schedule thing that we're looking at, I think I tended to just hang out mostly on NBC and ABC. Those would probably be the two I was flipping back and forth between the most, with an occasional stop at CBS for Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
And that's the ones I remember, not so much the ones that I appreciate more now, but I remember the ones I was heartbroken that they didn't last. And that was Dragon's Lair, that even back then I liked. Even as a kid, and it's very short-lived. But I grew up in the Don Bluth animation, even though I didn't really know who Don Bluth was probably, but I responded to Secret of NIMH and those growing up, and I could look at Dragon's Lair and see even the arcade game and the show, and be I like this style. This reminds me of other things I like, thinking of the other Don Bluth stuff.
Right.
And it was very short lived, but I remember always looking for it, before I knew stuff got canceled or how to find out if stuff got canceled. I was always, flipping the channel to be where'd they put Dragon's Lair, but it didn't last long. Those are the ones I remember of the ones I was heartbroken that they disappeared or were short lived.
Curtis Armstrong was the name of the actor who played.
Curtis Armstrong. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But no, because you had, you mentioned Dragons Lair. Didn't they have a Space Ace one as well?
They did, yeah.
Okay.
They did have Space Ace as well.
Yeah, I always liked the animation in the video games. And again, it was one of those things where it's you get it in the that's one thing that I think that people don't understand a lot of times is when you would have something that was, say, a movie or an animated movie, and it would make that leap from being a movie to being an animated thing, and the quality would just take that giant step down.
Right.
And I think Dragon's Lair and Space Ace is a really good example of that, because even now, if you go back and look at that game, how the animation of it, some of it's gorgeous.
Oh yeah. And
then you I remember being well, it looks all right, and we're getting more of it, so I guess I'll just eat more cereal and shut up about it and enjoy what I got. But I mean, it's for example, the Back to the Future cartoon was always one of those things where I never understood why, and it's not a bad cartoon, but it's the same episode every week. It's one of those shows that I just, even though I love Back to the Future as a property and I love the movie and everything, that one is with me. And then I never understood why Christopher Lloyd was willing to do doesn't he do the setups for it? if I remember correctly.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but it sounds right.
Like he does the setups, but the voice is actually done by what's his name from SCTV? Count Floyd?
Oh, yeah, the guy from Ed Grimley show too. I can't remember his name.
Ed Grimley.
Yes, there's another one. That was a great one too. But yeah, Count Floyd was what's his name? Joe Flaherty. Joe Flaherty.
Yeah,
Joe Flaherty did the voice of Doc Brown, but they would have Christopher Lloyd do the setups, and I never understood. Like, he's there. Like, put him in a. I mean, I'm sure that I know there's a difference between the voice acting and doing the 2-minute setup.
Right.
But I never quite got around the idea of why he wouldn't do all of it.
Yeah, sure. No, I get you. Like as a kid, like you don't understand it. You're like, he's right there. Why didn't you do it? Like later, you know, like okay, like he recorded all these in an afternoon.
Sure. I'm sure they paid him well, and they got him out there, and he did like 40 of them.
This is a day's work. It's a day's work for him.
Right.
Like
Right, he did that many, and then it was on his merit. You know, got back to doing whatever he wanted to do. But yeah, but you get a lot of that with animated stuff, right? Where it's one of those things where, again, the transformation from like anything. I'm trying to think of another example that was fairly, you know, like close to like an animated property that turned into a cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon.
You mean a movie that turned into a Saturday?
Yeah, or an anime.
Right, like something where you had a better, higher quality something to compare it to.
Yeah.
I have one that went the other way. I have one that was surprisingly good.
Okay.
But I get what you mean. Like Back to the Future, that was the one, and I was so young when this came out, right? Like, and I love Back to the Future. I love it to this day. One of my favorite things. But I was so excited about it. And even then, I remember watching it and being like, there's something about it that just like it didn't click for me.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't get it. Karate Kid was one too. I remember like that made a jump to animation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That kind of those like there was some other ones that I couldn't think of. I'm trying to think of ones that are or just like, well, like for example, like you get like when I think we've talked about it before in other episodes. Happy Days has a cartoon at one point.
Right. Where Fonz has a dog with a leather jacket.
Right, Mr. Cool.
Yep.
You know, it's sort of a talking dog, but sort of not a talking dog.
Right.
And then, you know, they time travel. It's a time travel show.
Right.
You know, they're going through the various eras, and it's a lot of like, you know, the time machine. Dee Dee Cohn from Benson is the voice of what's it? I think like I don't know, like what he calls her Cupcake all the time. So it's not like it's, but you know, a lot of the Fonz elbowing a time machine in order to get it to work. That kind of stuff is the gag. You know, and you've got Richie and Ralph Malph in Gladiator times. You know,
right.
And then like, but everyone from the voice cast voiced their character. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then you had like the Laverne and Shirley show that was Laverne and Shirley in the army.
Oh, right.
For whatever, you know, that's the setting they chose for the show.
Maybe Private Benjamin was really popular at the time. I don't know.
I mean, it was, let me see, it's 82, so it's possible.
Right.
Is it all like the end of Stripes?
Yeah. They're all
like, is like that's the whole show?
Yeah, they're all in the war Winnebago at the end of Stripes after they've had the Aunt Jemima treatment. And then they, but the thing is, like, they have a talking pig for a sergeant.
Yeah.
Voiced by Ron Palillo from Welcome Back, Kotter.
Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah.
Horseshack. Yeah.
And from Rubik's The Amazing Cube, as we talked about in our episode on that.
Yes. Horseshack makes a second appearance in our podcast. Yes. But that's his other thing is he does that voice of this, you know, angry all the time pig. You know, it's basically Beetle Bailey with Laverne and Shirley, but still, it's again one of those. As far as I remember, they did the voices for it. So
yeah, and then Mr. T did the voice for the Mr. T cartoon, where he also had a dog, but his dog had a mohawk.
Yes,
so not the leather jacket, I don't think, but he might have had a jean vest.
Yeah,
right.
And the kids were all gymnasts. And they traveled around trying to get to regionals while at the same time solving crime. Right.
Yep. That is true.
Yeah.
The one that jumps to mind to me, besides like RoboCop. Right. Yeah, like besides RoboCop, the one that jumps out to me was the one that you guys brought up before was like Alf.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Well,
I mean, like Alf was a big one. Actually went a fair amount. Like I mean, you guys have brought it up before. I know you guys all have like very fond memories of this show, right?
I have very fond memories of the theme song. That theme song is amazing. I think it lasted on the strength of its theme song, which was like a Motown doo-wop song.
It's a pretty good for being a prequel. It's a pretty strong. I mean, it's a pretty good prequel.
Yeah.
I remember what. I mean, I didn't watch it regularly, but I remember watching it going, okay, now I see what they're trying to do with this. Is they're showing what life was like on Melmac, and it worked. So
wow, it was a prequel. That's probably everybody's first interaction with a prequel before. It didn't even occur to me. But here and now, I'm like, it was a prequel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. It was all his time before he got to Earth. So, but yeah, like I said, I'm just looking at again, some of the concepts on these, a lot of these shows are similar. Like a lot of it's just, humans with an animal that sort of talks and they solve crimes, or, tried and true concepts with a a new paint scheme on it.
Right.
Like we talked about Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo, or 13 Ghosts, or Scooby and Scrappy Doo. There's another one.
Right.
That's where we get this from. That whole. But you had, I mean, was Mork and Mindy an animated series?
I can't remember. I feel like it was, but I don't remember for sure.
I think it was.
I would have been all over that, but I can't remember a moment of it. Can't remember any of it. Because I see it listed in 82. It's listed as it's like you've got, which is weird. You have Super Friends and then a block of Pac-Man, Little Rascals, and Richie Rich.
Right.
Which again, okay. And then another half hour of Pac-Man by himself, and then it says Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley, and then Scooby and Scrappy Doo, Puppy Power.
Well, yeah. I feel like if it's between cartoons, it had to be a cartoon. We will find this out.
Yeah. Mm. But again, there's also like you see, the other thing I'm seeing is the pattern is a lot of like animation studios, like something like Filmation. Like Filmation did a lot of action adventure stuff.
Right.
This is pre He-Man, so you have like Tarzan, Lone Ranger, Zorro, the old Batman, and Filmation stuff. Black Star. Yeah. Did anyone ever watch Black Star?
I watched Black Star. That was like a Space Conan type thing.
Yeah, that's like what was it? A split sword? Was that what it was? Mm-hmm. Like two halves or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I've solved the mystery. Mork and Mindy / Laverne and Shirley / Fonz Hour was a Ruby Spears production on ABC in 82. Yeah. It was animated.
Okay.
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 Yeah, it is funny to me because when you're thinking about like all the things that like were movies that made the jump to be a cartoon, they got kind of more forward thinking about it.
Right.
Down the line, I remember. And then like, because I mean, like Batman the Animated Series is that.
Right.
Really.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean, is an example of that. But there's you started to get stuff that things were in the making, right? There was a movie coming out, so let's go ahead and get a cartoon going first. There was a point like in the 90s where like it started shifting. Like I remember like Superman was that, right? Superman the Animated Series came about because like Tim Burton was supposed to be doing the Superman Lives, right, or Death of Superman movie with Nicolas Cage in it and stuff like that. And that's like, that's why it got greenlit. Just to be out there. Some other things too. I remember the one I was thinking about that was made from a movie that was better than it had any right to be was Men in Black.
Yeah.
Right.
That to me, like that was one that like wow, that was like that like really actually kind of like built on things and over time actually had it wasn't serialized like stuff we have today. It wasn't like Young Justice, but like it did have like bad guys that would come up and clearly come up again after with still the same thing that they encountered before, right? Like some follow-up thread that happened to them, right? They're coming back for revenge from this other thing that you saw,
right?
Which was cool,
right?
A couple of movie ones that I was surprised failed were the Star Wars ones. Ewoks and droids did not last, and they were like, they put them out a couple years after, I guess 86. So Return of the Jedi had been 83. Then we got a couple of Ewok movies, and then they put these out in 86. And like they really did not last. Like they lasted only about a season on Saturday morning, and I was surprised by that.
Right.
That I would have thought that would have been a slam dunk for kids to watch.
Yeah,
right.
I think that they were definitely I don't know if they were just aimed a little too young.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might have been the problem. I think it was one of the things where of like all the stuff that could have come out of the Star Wars. Because again, at that point when Lucas still owned it, it seemed very much like it was, very precious to him.
Right, yeah.
So there was not much leeway in order to do anything with it.
Right.
So what we got at the time, I think, was very, I think it was one of those things where it was very, they didn't, none of the established characters could really be in other than the droids and some of the Ewoks.
Right.
And again, if you're into Star Wars and say you're in your teens or whatever at that point, I don't think you want to see the further adventure. You want to see the further adventures of Luke and Han and everybody
Right.
that you know.
And all the regular characters were off the table just from the premises they decided to go with on these shows.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that was a tough sell if you didn't, immediately care about the droids.
Mm-hmm.
So, or the Ewoks. Some people, again, at the time, even now, some people just don't care for the Ewoks at all. Right. So
I loved them.
Motherless jerks.
I don't have a problem with it at all. They're fine. See, I'm fine with them. I just didn't want to watch them in a cartoon. That's all.
No, I understand. I understand that too.
Yeah. Both of these shows are available on Disney Plus currently to watch, though.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to kind of unpack too with what you guys were saying was how the Alf opening kind of carried the awesomeness of the show, and that's something I miss so much.
Right.
This is more than anything else I've been saying the whole episode. Like this is really where I'm gonna come off as old, like get off my lawn and stuff. But God, I miss like show intros.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like. Yeah. I miss them so because they're so fast now. If you even have anything, like it's usually just like a still of the name of the show with like a creator credit and that's it, or or you get it like TV is now, where you get sort of like the opening credits like over story now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But like the idea that like that you had a minute that had like somebody wrote an awesome theme song that somebody sung with with everything that they got. You know what I mean, right? And
well, I mean, it's
it explained to you the premise of the show.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, think about the Turtles and the fact that was it Chuck? Is it Lorre or Lore? The guy that went on to
Chuck
do
Lorre.
all those shows.
Yeah, 2.5 Men, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. Huge. Probably get any show that he once made at this point. That guy wrote that theme song. And he doesn't. I don't think he gets anything for it. I think he's got one of his end slates of the show.
Right.
He explains what happened. That he's like, no, I wrote it, and it's catchy, and people love it, but it's not like it's not the thing that made me my money or whatever. So
right. It didn't pay for my kids' braces.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah.
Right. But again, there were so many of those theme songs or whatever. Like you said, I'm always a fan of a theme song that explains, like you said, sets the premise up. Even if they decide in season 2 to change up all the imagery for the season 2, intro is the same song.
It was just like it. I got then too. There was a different time, but it was. It served the purpose too of like, this may be the first time you're catching a show. So here it is. You're all caught up after the minute. Like,
yeah.
No, I miss it so much. And it's one of those things that still at the moment, I can't believe somebody hasn't tried to do it. Like even as a retro thing. Like, I can't believe that nobody's done.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know what? We're gonna go back. We're gonna do kind of a throwback intro back to 1993.
You do. I mean, I think that the closest to it as you get is like Mike Tyson Mysteries.
Oh,
like that's a pretty good throwback intro. I mean, for being and granted, there's an episode that explains what happens. It explains the episode and how that episode fits into the intro, but which is pretty great. But I think every now and then you get somebody. But I agree with you. There's not enough of it, and I think shows need intros. I think intros are important. Even if it takes away devoted time from story and or selling a hawking something,
right?
I think an intro is I think there's a reason why you go through that go down that YouTube hole of watching, 20 theme songs from the 1970s, 80s, and 90s because you love theme songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think you guys are selling it short. The theme songs are there. You just are. It's the bit of nostalgia from Saturday morning, but I know you guys love Avatar. You even get it with DuckTales when they did the reboot.
True.
There's Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
There's Rick and Morty. There's Steven Universe. I mean, Adventure Time. It's there. I mean, there's a more smackling of it.
Steven, no, you're right. You are right. They are in there more as you're listening them off. You're right. I mean, there are more than I'm thinking. It's like Steven Universe is the one too that like my wife sings that every time we watch it. Like, I mean, like that.
Yeah.
That's like one of those really successful ones where like that song gets in your head.
Yes.
As is, I mean, that's one of the strengths of the show too. I mean, there's a million songs in that show that that could get in your head. But yeah.
But no, I think there's a revitalization of it just because a lot of people are our age and they're creating cartoons. So I think that period of time happened, I'll say, in the 2000s. And then when those people who are nostalgia for those Saturday morning intros or those themes have exploded and made cartoons of their own. I mean, yeah, Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah.
That was loaded with songs and things of that nature. So it's certain things are coming full circle as far as nostalgia for that type of feeling and outbreak. The only thing I don't miss is stars being made into cartoons, even with Space Jam, that was littered with Saturday morning cartoons in which every famous star had to be a cartoon version of himself during the whole decade of the 80s. But you guys were listening. You said I heard Ed Grimley, Back to the Future. We were missing on Ghostbusters. I mean, any
Hammerman.
craze that involved. Yeah, Hammerman.
That's
we
right.
had MC Hammer.
Gary Coleman. Coleman as an angel
Gary
solving
Coleman.
mysteries.
Yeah. Yeah. Cap Candy. I mean, if you had even the attention of any kid as an adult, you're guaranteed to have a Saturday morning cartoon made after you, which was insane to today's standards.
I think there would still be a market for that though too. I mean, you're right, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think, Frank, you're crazy. I agree with Clifton. Smurfs was a dynasty. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, but oh my gosh, how could you not remiss about, it was almost 10 years it was on the air. 10 years later, there's a live action cartoon. And on top of that, the knockoffs, Snorks, the Misfits, all types of crazy shows that were trying to mimic it. I don't know. That's just my favorite.
Yeah, Smurfs came on the air in the fall of 1981 and was still on the air on Saturday mornings through the 90s, through into, at least this list has the last schedule I see is 1990 on this list. And it's still there on NBC.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every year in between.
So nuts.
No less than an hour. At the most, maybe 2 hours at some time.
An hour and a half most times.
So we'll get into our picks for the Hall of Fame in just a minute, but I kind of want to get into like how Saturday mornings it's like it's gone away a little, like, you know, like that those blocks aren't there anymore, and you know, and why we think some of that has happened, and you know, there have been in my estimation like attempts to sort of like try and capture it on a different time at a different day, right? You know, certainly as an animation loving adult, and it's amazing to me how like it still works on me at this age.
Right.
Like I still get excited for a block of animation. Like, you know, I mean, when Justice League Unlimited was a thing, I remember like that was a Saturday night block,
right?
You know, of like action oriented cartoons and stuff like that.
And Samurai Jack was usually on the block with Justice League at that Saturday night when they would premiere the new ones.
And I remember Friday nights, you know, like I would, you know, I was a grown ass man,
right?
Right. I would get home from work because I had a standing like Friday night shift. I would get off of work at like 7. I'd go home, and then I would it was like Batman Brave and the Bold.
Yep.
Right? Like Young Justice, Ben 10 Alien Force, and then like whatever, like, and there was always like kind of like a floating different one. It was either like Thundercats or Symbionic Titan, and like like that was the highlight of my week. Is like, you know, like for a lot of reasons. Like, you know, my girlfriend, you know, then at the time, now my wife, like she was, you know, she would head to my place after she got off. She'd be waiting for me. We'd watch that stuff together. And then we go get dinner afterward. And it's like, you know, I mean, so there's a lot of like awesome memories to that, but like, I really love those shows. And like, we got into all that stuff together, you know?
Yeah. And it was like right after that period, within the next couple of years, was when DC started doing the DC Nation, and Cartoon Network tried to have like the Saturday morning block going again. So they would do the DC Nation shorts in between like Beware the Batman and Teen Titans Go when they brought that back, and Young Justice at that time. And you also had Nickelodeon running Korra on Saturday mornings at the same time.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they tried.
That's
like
right.
that was about 10 years ago, almost. Not quite, but almost 10 years ago. That was the last one I remembered. I do think the cartoon channels have affected it some, where you can just get like kids can just get cartoons all over.
Right.
And so like when they show theirs on Saturday, it doesn't feel much different because they'll most likely show them another day of the week too.
Yeah.
But so kids can kind of catch them whenever. But like it was nice because the ones we're talking about of like that 10 years ago of Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, like it was kind of a premiere and they wouldn't show them again for a while. Like you definitely wouldn't get them. You might get like one more day where they would show it. But other than that, like you had to watch it that Saturday or record DVR it, which I always did. But like it was like I do.
Yeah.
I would like mark out for that stuff when they try to bring it back.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's right. The DC Nation. I mean, that was like the last time I remember, like, because we like, you know, Mary and I would do that too. We would wake up and like we would wake up for that, and like Green Lantern and Young Justice and all that stuff. You know, watch on the couch, you know, under the blanket and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's
right.
You know, I remember I was listening to, I think it was one of Deanie's podcasts with like Spike Brandt and Tony Schiavone, you know, like, you know, journeyman mainstay guys at Warner Brothers Forever. They were talking about this exact thing. And I think they had like a great point where they were like Saturday mornings are different now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like we were all latchkey kids, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? And the idea that like, I don't think like that's not as much a thing anymore. I feel like Saturdays kids have like soccer.
Right.
Now that they're going, you know what I mean? And like they're busy, like they're in clubs or in activities and stuff like that. So it just seems almost to me like just like the viewing, you know, I'm sure it's still there in the millions, but I think it's probably still not what they were pulling in,
right?
You know, in the 80s and 90s
in
for
the heyday.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys are missing the greatest pull away from morning cartoons. Nintendo. Why spend time watching the show when you can play Zelda or Super Nintendo or something? That killed it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they try to make it a cartoon and stuff, but nothing beat actually playing it.
No, you're 100% right. 100%. All right, so let's start wrapping up. You guys want to do the Hall of Fame?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So we're going to close out the show. Each of us is going to name a show from our childhood that we will induct into the Saturday Morning Hall of Fame, which is just something we just made up for this episode. Not really a thing, but it sounded cool.
Right.
But first, if you like the show, you could check out all of our episodes on YouTube and letmeknowhowitis.com. Just please, however you find us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And finally, if you have any topic ideas, shoot them our way on Twitter or in the comments. Our Twitter handles are show's initials, LMKHII. All right. Frank, you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start us off.
Okay.
Anybody want to guess what mine is?
I think I know.
Yeah.
Well, they did make a moonlighting cartoon.
Is it moonlighting?
Yes, they should have. They absolutely should have. With a fast talking dog to go along with David Addison.
Yeah.
No, this was tough. I was trying to think if we're, for being our first pass at a Saturday Morning Hall of Fame. I mean, I've talked about this particular show a number of times, and the fact that I want to see it rebooted or redone. And we did that episode. You know, it's a property that I think they should revisit, and I still am very surprised that they haven't. I'm gonna go with Dungeons and Dragons. That's my one.
Okay.
I still think it's an easy, with Netflix or with Amazon Prime.
Right.
Somebody should get, acquire this property. I mean, they're supposed to be doing a new Dungeons and Dragons movie, but it's not based on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's another one that sells you on the premise immediately in the opener. 7 kids get stranded in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons. They all get mad through a carnival ride.
Yep.
And then they're stuck there, and they have to, they're up going against Venger, voiced by
Peter Cullen.
Thank you. Optimus Prime.
I was like, Horseshack?
No. Optimus Prime is a heavy, and then
Optimus Prime is a villain.
Yeah,
that does sound cool.
And then Tiamat, basically the dragon, which is a 6-headed dragon, which is like the main two things that they have to face off against. And then the Dungeon Master is the one that leads them. But they all have magical weapons, and there's Uni the unicorn, and it's awesome. And again, I think it's a great show for a property that people seem to love. And you have celebrities going on and on about how they have D&D nights,
right?
But no one, as far as I know, is I think Tommy sent me a picture from Walmart of they're just starting to put out merch again for it. So I'm hoping that means someone's picked it up and is going to do something with it.
Like merch specifically tied to the show, to the animated series. Okay, yeah. I hadn't seen that stuff yet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
there was some of those.
That's exciting.
Some of those, like it was, what was it? Key tags, Tommy?
Yeah, it was like keychains. It was like
with all the
various box.
Yeah,
with 3 specific characters, and they released a couple of them during Comic Cons, but this one in particular had the Barbarian, Dungeon Master, and
Presto, right?
I want to say Presto, yeah.
Okay.
Magician.
Those 3 characters.
So yeah, it's one of the things where I'm hopeful, but as a show, I love it. I think it's great. I think again, whether it's live action, animated, whatever, it's something I'd like them someone to revisit.
Okay.
Yeah, and as a property, I don't know if Dungeons and Dragons has ever been hotter,
right,
across pop culture as a property than it is now.
I mean, in the 80s,
yeah.
In the 80s, it was a gateway to Satan and the devil. And,
right,
and all
there was
that
a
stuff.
satanic panic. It was the target of satanic panic at the time.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but nevertheless, bring it back. So,
Yep.
that's what I would put in the
satanic panic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a band named that, isn't there?
Probably.
There's probably a couple right now that are playing someplace. But no, that's the one that I would put in the Saturday Morning Cartoon Hall of Fame for sure.
Okay. No, good pick. You threw me for a loop there. I thought you were going to go with a couple different ones, but
yeah, well,
Yeah, but no, that's a good one.
We can have future installments.
Of course.
Right. All right, Tommy, what's yours?
Oh. No, I wasn't surprised with Frank's choice, but yeah, that cartoon was ahead of time. At first I hated it, and then I loved it later when I got older. My choice. To be honest, the one I want, I think they'll mess it up and destroy the joy I felt. So I hope they never touch it, despite it being the pinnacle of Disney's afternoon block. I want them to take another stab at the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Really?
Yes. Only because I forgot how poignant it was with certain characters.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, there's one episode that it stays in my head 100% rent-free. Of Rabbit trying to raise a bird and be a parent. That is like classic storytelling. That I don't care how old you are, it messes with me. But it just had a certain tone about it that it wasn't about comedy, and it wasn't about so much lesson showing, but just how the characters deal with their lives. And I feel it was ahead of its time then. I mean, I dare any of y'all to watch The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I even show you a couple episodes. It's like, it still has that 80s, like, I only that I'd be smart to understand the plot, but the emotional reverence in it is surprisingly well dated. That's my pick.
Okay. Yeah, because looking over the grid, that was one I would never. I would and there's no way.
Yes,
I never would have watched it. So it's interesting that you say that.
I watched it because it was one of those moments where it's the last on the block.
I got you.
You watch it because it's the last thing on.
Because it's on.
Yes.
Right.
And I was like, this is deep for a cartoon. I mean, you basically, like, the theme, at one point when Rabbit raised a bird that couldn't fly, after a while, he didn't want it to fly away because then it'd be lonely. So he became a helicopter parent. And when you see it, you see it. And then it's so jarring because he does it and he emotionally manipulates this bird.
Oh,
yeah. If you see it, if you're like, why would you want to leave me? So Randy, I'll never leave you.
Wow.
It'll mess you up. I'm telling you.
That's dark.
It's dark, but it's realistic because he does let her go in the time of great need and understanding. but it'll hit you.
Yeah.
It'll hit you if I show it to you now. It'll be like, they had this in the 80s. I'm surprised Disney even made it. It was that
Right.
ahead of its time.
Mm.
But no, that I urge you, watch the one where Rabbit wants to be a parent to a bird that can't fly.
All right. So Winnie the Pooh
All
is
right.
Tommy's Hall of Fame pick.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
indeed.
Winnie the Pooh and Dungeons and Dragons. All right, Clifton, what's yours?
So I'm going with one that was, well, first I'm going to give a shout out to something Saturday morning related that I meant to bring up. And then I'll get to my show pick. And the thing I'm bringing up is an album, a music album that came out in 1995 called Saturday Morning Cartoons Greatest Hits.
Mm. Mhm.
And this was a Christmas present to me from my sister that Christmas of 95, and is an album that I listened to like nonstop for I don't know how long. Like I could still put it on right now and listen to it. I still have this CD, even though I've like
It's a great one.
downloaded it to various iPods along the way. So I've got digital copies, but I still have the CD. And just some of the highlights of this is they went back and it was the alternative bands and artists of the time of
Right.
the mid 90s covering the theme songs to the Saturday morning cartoons that they grew up on. So we're talking most of these are through the 70s.
It's great.
Yeah.
What?
It's
This is
awesome.
hilarious.
It's a great CD.
It
It's terrific.
has, I'm looking at some. We've got Speed Racer by Sponge.
Mm-hmm.
Scooby-Doo, Where Are You by Matthew Sweet.
It's a good one.
Okay.
The Bugaloos, which was one of the Sid Marty Krofft live action kids shows. The Bugaloos by Collective Soul. Underdog by Butthole Surfers.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Gigantor by Helmet.
That's a good one too.
Spider-Man by the Ramones.
Okay.
And then my personal favorite is a medley of Johnny Quest and Stop That Pigeon by the Reverend Horton Heat,
Mm-hmm.
who said that the Johnny Quest theme is the hardest song they ever had to play because it changes chords 5 times in 30 seconds. A couple other great ones, and I won't quite read them all, but Eep Op Ork Ah Ah from the Jetsons means I love you, if you remember that episode of the Jetsons by the Violent Femmes, which could not be a more perfect song for the Violent Femmes.
Yep, it works.
And then Open Up Your Heart and Let the Sun Shine In from the Flintstones. It was the one little Baby Pebbles would sing with Bam Bam back in the show. And that one's performed by Frente. And yeah, we've also got some others, just some of the other artists, Tripping Daisies, Toadies, Sublime.
Liz Fair does the Banana Splits, right?
Yes, Liz
my
Fair,
God.
Material Issues does the Banana Split theme. Yes, that's the
It's
opener
great.
track on the album.
It's so nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome though.
So I do recommend looking this one up. Saturday Morning Cartoons Greatest Hits from 1995. It is an amazing album. I've listened to it so much throughout my life. And now for my show pick, for my Hall of Fame show pick, I'm going to go
Okay.
with the one.
I just love that exists.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I just love that I share a world with that album.
It's a good album. It's a
Sorry.
great album.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Hall of Fame pick, I'm going with the show that conversations about kind of sparked this whole topic for the show because it is the 40th anniversary of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Yay!
Okay.
That's a good
So
one.
that's the one I'm
Nice.
going for with my Hall of Fame pick, just because like I loved that show as a kid, but it was my intro. It was my gateway to like all of these characters that I still love and enjoy so much. So it was because of that it introduced me to all the characters, that it introduced me to the Marvel Universe, that I started picking up the comics when I would see them at 7-Eleven, and then eventually found out comic book stores exist, and then started
Right.
going to comic book stores, and then later worked at comic book stores, and then now go to the movies and watch the shows and still read the comics. And like it was the gateway that got me into all this stuff that I've enjoyed in pop culture my entire life at this point so far. And I just loved it as a show, that it was, Spider-Man, who was my favorite, but then we also got to see like all these other characters all the time. And he would interact with like Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom and Starfire, not Starfire. Who's the Japanese X-Men?
Sunfire.
And you'd interact with Sunfire and like crazy, like so many characters they would interact with. The X-Men was my introduction to them. Like so much stuff they threw at you. And it was, I guess, about 26 episodes technically of that. Mm-hmm. But then there was also solo Spider-Man episodes that they would play like interspersed. So there was a lot of Spider-Man back at that time. So that was mine.
Spider-Man Solo was still made from that, or it was like reruns of like the Bakshi stuff.
They were made around the same. They were both 81.
It's the same. Okay. It looks like it's the same production company, and it looks like it might be the same voice, right?
I think it's the same voice.
So yeah, both of them are available on Disney Plus. It looks like they made Spider-Man, and then they're like, "Oh, that's cool.
Right.
Let's give him some friends."
Right.
And they added Iceman and Firestar after that. Yep. So
cool. All right, all good picks. Mine, admittedly, is not the greatest show.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly shows that have had a bigger, more longer lasting, and more important effect on me. But this show did have a lot of firsts for me, looking back as a geek and in fandom. So I'm gonna say X-Men the animated series.
Okay,
nice.
Because why is it not Batman? Batman is like, for like what you were saying, like Clifton, like this was the show that kind of got me like really into comics, like got me to go to comic stores. You can be a Batman fan pretty easily and not ever read a Batman comic in your life and still know a lot of the bad guys and stuff like that. So it was sort of like a little bit of a window into a new world per se. This is also, I don't know how, being that I was so young, but this is the first show that, like, as a kid, we kind of got inkling that it was coming before we ever saw anything for it, right? Like, a lot of times you would see a commercial for something and be like, this fall coming on Fox is, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Earthworm Jim. like, neat, they're doing an Earthworm Jim cartoon. Like, but this was the one that like we knew like there's an X-Men show coming out, right? And it was like before we ever saw anything. And I remember like when they first showed a commercial for it, like we lost our minds. Like we're like, yes, finally, like it's coming. This was also my first experience with like taping shows, right? And I mean, and honest to God, like when they did the first premiere, like the Night of the Sentinels thing, like I watched my tape of that literally probably 5 or 6 times that day, Saturday. I watched it 5 or 6 times. And at one point there was no lie, like 11 kids from the neighborhood, like all in my house watching it because I was the guy that had it on tape. Right. Like, I mean, like this was a huge show. And also like my first intro to like serialized TV. I had seen like a million 2-parters at this point, but like it was, there's a language to TV and you understand that like, okay, like this is just the plot for a 2-parter is longer. And then like, and then you get to the end of part 2 and that's the end of the episode and that's fine. X-Men had a weird thing where like, I knew that episode 1 and 2 were tied together by some like continued through line. And then the third episode was then like a Magneto thing and it was different. And then that had to be continued. And I'm like, these aren't connected necessarily like plot wise together, but there's a through line through all of it. And that was sort of like, for me, new and innovative and stuff like that. So, just so for all those reasons, I'm going to say X-Men the animated series.
All right.
Just because, it got me in the feels a lot as a kid.
It was a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, and some episodes hold up pretty well and others not so much, but, it was fun. It was always fun, especially when you were however old I was, 10, I guess. So, yeah. So there we go. So X-Men animated series, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Winnie the Pooh, and Dungeons and Dragons.
All right. That's
not
our first.
Not a terrible first class.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So maybe we'll keep up with it. We'll see. Anyway, so we want to hear your memories of Saturday morning. Hit us up in the comments or on Twitter. As always, we'll post links and examples to everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com. So please remember to like us and follow us on social media, and we will see you guys next time.